Not only is the animated blue-colored Australian cattle dog a favorite among children for her playful humor, but the show also appeals to adults who are reminiscing about their childhood. Today is Saturday, April 20th, 2024, and this is the Dunkley Report. Viewers don't have to be young or a parent to appreciate the Australian kids' television program, Bluey, as this week's release of a special episode proved. Not only is the animated blue-colored Australian cattle dog a favorite among children for her playful humor, but the show also appeals to adults who are reminiscing about their childhood. Bluey premiered in Australia in 2018 and began streaming on Disney Plus in 2020. The show has released more than 150 episodes, about 7 minutes long, and streamed around the world. One dad said he'd put it up right there with Breaking Bad. Opening statements in Donald Trump's hush money case are set to begin next week after a jury of 12 people and 6 alternates were seated in his hush money case. The seating of a full jury sets the stage for weeks of testimony in a case charging Trump with falsifying business records to suppress stories that might damage his 2016 campaign. It's the first of Trump's 4 indictments to go to the trial, and the first criminal trial against a former U.S. president. Trump has pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. Israel and Iran are both playing down an apparent Israeli airstrike near a major airbase and nuclear site in central Iran. The muted public responses signal the two bitter enemies are ready to prevent their latest eruption of violence from escalating into a full-blown region-wide war. But the indecisive outcome of weeks of tensions, which included an alleged Israeli strike that killed 2 Iranian generals, an unprecedented Iranian missile barrage on Israel, and the apparent Israeli strike early Friday in the heart of Iran, has done little to resolve the deeper grievances between the foes and left the door open to further fighting. The House has pushed a $95 billion national security aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and other U.S. allies closer to passage. A key procedural vote gained approval Friday to move ahead with the bill, Democrats joining Republicans in a rare assist. House Speaker Mike Johnson has been making the rounds on conservative media, working to salvage the wartime funding, particularly for Ukraine as it faces a critical moment battling Russia. His own job is also under threat as the restless right flank threatens to oust him from office. President Joe Biden sent a swift endorsement of the Speaker's plan. Final votes on the package are expected Saturday. Employees at a Volkswagen factory in Chattanooga, Tennessee have voted overwhelmingly in favor of joining the United Auto Workers Union, boosting the UAW's nationwide effort to organize non-union factories. The union wound up getting 73% of the ballots cast in an election run by the National Labor Relations Board that ended Friday. Twice in recent years, workers at the Chattanooga plant have rejected union membership. But this time they voted convincingly for the UAW, which is operating under new leadership directly elected by members for the first time and basking in a successful confrontation with Detroit's major automakers. U.S. oil industry's top lobbying group says Biden administration rules restricting oil and gas leasing in 13 million acres of Alaska's petroleum reserve are misguided. The American Petroleum Institute says the rules limit development in a region intended by Congress to bolster America's energy security. The Biden administration Friday finalized rules that would restrict new oil and gas leasing and development in portions of the Federal Petroleum Reserve in Alaska that are considered particularly sensitive as the Arctic continues to warm. The decision finalizes protections for the National Petroleum Reserve Alaska, first proposed last year. Environmentalists are elated, but Senate Republicans says the Democratic president's action will lead to energy insecurity. Complaints about pregnant women being turned away from emergency rooms spiked in the months after states began enacting strict abortion laws following the 2022 U.S. Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. The cases are detailed in federal documents obtained by the Associated Press and raise serious questions about the state of emergency pregnancy care in the U.S. Federal law requires emergency rooms to stabilize patients who are in active labor and provide a medical transfer to another hospital if they don't have the staff or resources to treat them. The Supreme Court is set to hear arguments next week in an Idaho case that could weaken those federal protections. BNSF Railway attorneys told Montana that the railroad should not be held liable for the lung cancer deaths of 2 former residents of an asbestos-contaminated Montana town. Railroad attorney Chad Knight said that the W.R. Grace Mining Company did not tell them that the vermiculite it was hauling around the country was dangerous. The town of Libby, Montana, is among the deadliest sites in the federal Superfund pollution program. The estates of the deceased plaintiffs say dust from a rail yard sickened and killed them. The jury was meeting briefly Friday and planned to resume deliberations on Monday. Chicago is one of several big American cities grappling with a surge of migrants. With help from state and federal funds, the city has spent more than $300 million to provide housing, health care, and more to over 38,000 mostly South American migrants. The speed with which these funds were marshaled has stirred widespread resentment among Black Chicagoans. But community leaders are trying to ease racial tensions and channel the public's frustrations into agitating for the greater good. The outcry is having wider implications in an election year. The Biden administration is advocating a more restrictive approach to immigration in its negotiations with Republicans in Congress. The final jurors have been seated in Donald Trump's hush money trial, and an appellate judge has rejected the former president's latest bid to halt the case. A hectic day in court Friday set the stage for opening statements to begin Monday. The panel of New Yorkers who will decide the first criminal trial of a former U.S. president took final shape after lawyers spent days quizzing dozens of potential jurors on whether they can impartially judge Trump in the city where he built his real estate empire before being elected in 2016. Today's news has been reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Saturday, April 20th, 2024. Thanks again for joining us at the Dunkley Report.